One of the biggest economic events in this country, really a seismic event since World War II, was something that most Americans barely noticed when it happened: China's admission into the World Trade Organization. That was the moment when China fully emerged onto the global stage as an economic power. It only happened because America allowed it to happen. Leaders in both parties told us that letting China into the WTO would be great for everybody, especially us. Here was Bill Clinton's pitch back in 2000.
For the first time, our companies will be able to sell and distribute products in China made by workers here at home without transferring technology and manufacturing. Never happened before. For the first time, China will agree to play by the same open trading rules we do. Never happened before. Meanwhile, we'll get two tough new safeguards against surges of imports, which would threaten to throw a lot of Americans out of work in a short time under unfair trade practices.
George W. Bush became president the following year, but the policy remained the same. China was allowed into the WTO. 4 years later, President Bush declared that deal a major success. Quote, "China's membership in the World Trade Organization has been a good thing for America." But has it been a good thing for America, or did our leaders lie to us? Consider these numbers. In 2001, our annual trade deficit with China was $83 billion. Today, it's $375 billion. Since 2001, the American manufacturing economy has all but collapsed. Our apparel, textile, and wood furniture industries, for example, are now half the size they were. A 2017 study from the Economic Policy Institute found that America's trade deficit with China cost us about 3.4 million jobs between 2001 and 2015. Over the same period, this country lost 60,000 factories. Wages in markets that are competing directly with China are lower by more than $200 per adult per year. When it joined the WTO, China was supposed to follow international fair play rules. That was mostly the point of it. But they don't, and they never have. China relentlessly steals American intellectual property. The annual cost to us, hundreds of billions of dollars per year. China restricts the export of natural resources like bauxite, magnesium, silicon carbide, even though such restrictions violate the rules of the WTO. Foreign companies operating in China see their technology stolen. Often they are forced to partner with local partners who add no value. This is effectively a shadow tariff on their companies. China's biggest cheat, though, is on currency. From 2000 to 2014, China suppressed its national currency against the dollar. This gave it a huge advantage in its exports. That definitely violated WTO rules, but the U.S. never took serious action to stop the Chinese government from doing this, even as thousands and then millions of factory jobs across the United States were annihilated as a result. The people who got us into this deal are still around, and they're doing great. They're prosperous. Bill and Hillary Clinton, the Bushes, members of Congress, business leaders, they're in fine shape. They're not worried about their jobs. Their incomes are higher than they've ever been. The center of the country, though, if you've driven through it recently, you know, has been hollowed out. Earlier, we talked to Lou Dobbs, host of Lou Dobbs Tonight on the Fox Business Network. Lou, thanks for joining us tonight.
Great to be with you.
So China's entry into the WTO in 2001 began hurting America almost immediately, and of course 17 years later it's clear the damage that it has done, and yet there remains bipartisan support for it. Why?
Because both parties are supported by the same groups, Wall Street, the Business Roundtable, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Koch brothers, driving U.S. multinational interest throughout. We've seen it going back to really President Clinton, in which he talked about the China entering the world of nations and playing by the same rules as did George Bush, as did President Obama, and it's been nothing more than a pipe dream, and the reality has been trillions of dollars lost in economic growth for this country, millions of middle-class jobs lost, as you know.
So what does that mean? If you see China cheating under the terms of its membership, and you decide to do nothing about it, have you convinced yourself you're somehow helping America by allowing China to cheat?
I think, again, they were convincing themselves with a considerable amount of grease and assistance from, again, K Street, the lobbyists, the vested establishment interest who are multinationals in focus and who benefit immensely from that focus. So the reality becomes that this is all about who has bought whom. And both parties have been owned by the establishment for all this time. What happens with President Trump? The fact is he is the only candidate with the guts, the courage, the principle, and the understanding of both business and economics, as well as national security, to have attacked the establishment and the consequences of their horrible policies that they followed in both trade and national security over the past 3 decades.
So the bipartisan response to Trump's mentioning how we're getting hurt by China by these trade agreements was to say, even among liberals, you can't tamper with the precepts of free trade. You're going to start a trade war. Free trade works. People who never supported free trade before suddenly were out there carrying the banner for free trade. What did you make of that as a longtime conservative?
The absurdity of it is liberals don't understand economics to begin with, or they wouldn't be liberals. Secondly, the idea that this president is trying to reverse the consequences of all of those misbegotten concepts, values, and ideas over the course of 3 decades, he is really the only one who's had the guts to stand up over the course of those 3 decades. Imagine this, Tucker, and say, we're not going to take it anymore. We're going to focus on the middle class. We're going to focus on traditional American values and assert U.S. leadership once again, at least over the free world, if not our own future. And this president is going a long ways toward asserting that control over our future. He's the only one talking about the future.
So really quick, and I don't want to oversimplify, but even as the middle class has withered and died, no longer the majority in this country, the top echelons have gotten richer than any group has ever been in human history. Do you think that phenomenon is tied directly to China trade?
I think that it is certainly implicated. We've lost millions of jobs. The estimates range anywhere from 3 to 4 million jobs to outsourcing alone. Then you have those jobs ripped out of this economy because of labor arbitrage. That is, cheaper labor producing goods in China are going to have a competitive advantage over U.S. middle-class wages and workers. And the result is onerous. It's why we've seen our middle class shrink rather than prosper.
Right. Meanwhile, the finance economy has bloomed, of course. Lou Dobbs, thank you. That was a great description of a sad phenomenon. I appreciate it.
Great to be with you, Tucker. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, a 30-year-old man-child has finally been forced to move out of his parents' basement. Court order is making him. Kathy Aru, our liberal Sherpa, supports his right to stay. She'll explain why. Stay tuned.